Hi, it's Maureen O'Brien. I'm a registered nurse and I've worked in the geriatric field for several decades. And we've been talking about falls. I have a Facebook page called Aging with Grace, Investing in Wellness. And many of these YouTube videos are going on that Facebook page, which is public. So join us if you're interested in that topic. So we've been talking about falls and how to prevent falls, some of the factors that cause falls. And one of the major factors that do cause falls in the elderly is muscle tone or the musculoskeletal problems. Did you know that when an elderly person fractures a hip, they are 20% more likely to die in the following year? So this is a statistic that we need to take seriously and think about ways we can prevent falls for those we love that are elderly. But what are we doing now as women or men in our 50s, 60s, 70s to prevent some of the causes of falls regarding the musculoskeletal system? So what are some of the factors regarding our muscles and bones that cause falls? Well, number one, we lack muscle flexibility. And number two, we have sometimes poor muscle tone or strength. Some of us may have decreased bone mass, and some of us may have a loss of balance. So I'm hoping this isn't true for any of you who are now in their 50s, 60s, 70s, but I do know from working with the elderly, most all of those factors come into play at some point in the 80s and 90s. And so what can we do when we are young to prevent these problems? Well, of course, it's the dreaded E word, exercise. I'm not one to talk about exercise truthfully. I am not a big exerciser. I consider myself moderately active. I like to walk. I do walk the dog. I like to hike. I used to swim, and recently I bought a bike. So I've been biking more. Today I took an hour bike ride. But these are just small little ways that I'm working towards wellness, and I have a long way to go. I would be interested in knowing if you're a fitness guru or if you're just also doing some moderate exercise. So let's talk about what some of those exercises might be that would help us most. Let's start with balance. So that's not really an exercise, although a yoga class would help you very much in this regard. But I practice balance in several ways. I try to shave my legs in the shower, standing on one foot and not holding on until I need to. Not exactly the safest way to practice balance. I try to put my shoes on and off in a standing position just to test my balance. And I've noticed my balance is not as good as it was 10 years ago. Any of you who have been on a merry-go-round or swings and find motion sickness an issue, these are symptoms that your balance or your equilibrium is starting to age. So that starts basically by the time you're 35, little factors like that start. So practicing balance. You can stand at the kitchen sink while you're washing dishes and stand on one foot. Be close enough that if you need to catch yourself, you catch yourself. You can practice balance with a chair nearby to hold on to, but let go when you can. These are just a couple ways to think about and keep in mind balance as we age. Now, we would never ask an older person to do these exercises. One of the measures when I do long-term care assessments is their ability to not only stand unassisted, but to stand with balance without an assistive device, or at least to be able to stand and use an assistive device safely as opposed to pulling it over. But let's start when we're young, working on balance, and hopefully we won't have as many problems as we age. Another issue as we age is bone mass. So you may or may not have had your osteoporosis test to know how dense your bones are. Especially as women, as we lose estrogen in our system, we have less bone density. So taking vitamin D3 helps. but also, again, the dreaded E word, exercise. So some of the exercises that will not help you with bone strength are swimming and biking. And I'll talk about those later, but exercises that help you with bone density improvement are, think of pounding exercises where we're actually walking, hiking, marching, any kind of gravity with our feet or bones, even push-ups, jumping jacks. The force on our bones with gravity and friction helps build new bone growth or sustain bone growth so that we have good bone density. So yes, I'm working on that. I walk the dog. I don't do jumping jacks. I did buy a jump rope because that was fun when I was younger. So I've tried jump rope a few times. But I bought a new bike and I was, thinking about bone density and realizing, wait a minute, this bike isn't going to help me with bone density. But what will it help me with? It will help me with strength and endurance and muscle tone. So that's the third factor, strength of your muscles, muscle tone, and some endurance. So biking is a great exercise for that, as well as swimming. Swimming, we can also add in the flexibility because you have a larger range of motion in the pool. You can practice stretching in your range of motion in the pool, in addition to actual endurance by treading water. It's just swimming is one of those overall great exercises, except for how it helps your bone density. So these are just a few strategies as we're younger. This is nothing new. I'm not saying anything new to any of you, that exercise is healthy and good for us. But let's talk about those we love that are elderly. How does this apply to them? Well, check and see when your loved one gets off of a chair or out of bed if they have balance issues. And talk to them not only about the factors we talked about last week, grab bars or bed rails as an assistive measure, but getting a walker or a cane and using it. This is an embarrassing time for people. No one wants to have a walker, but falling and breaking a hip is much worse than having a walker. Chair exercises. So this is a routine in most assistive living and senior places, independent living. They offer daily exercise, but it's chair exercise. And it's sometimes throwing a ball to one another, range of motion, doing repetitive actions with the arms and legs, but sitting in a chair for safety. And if your loved one doesn't know how to do that, just go through a few suggested exercises, marching in place, sitting in a chair. Give them a can of soup or something, less than a pound to lift repetitively up to their shoulder or as high as they can above their shoulder without pain. So exercise. Love it. Some people love it. I'm not a lover, but I'm working on it. And I would love to know from you what kind of exercises you do, especially if you're a little like I am, not a big exercise guru. What gets you up and going? What strategies do you use to walk more, do exercises with bone density? Just let me know what's on your mind and how you are addressing your exercise. All of it is an investment in wellness to prevent future falls and actually adds to our cardiopulmonary well-being also, which we will talk about another day. Thank you. Bye.